Hello, welcome to our video about engineering resumes. We're going to talk about what goes into a resume, how to write a resume, about the sections of it, how to change your resume as you progress in your engineering curriculum or career, and even a little bit about job searches. So let's get started. Now in this video we're going to get a lot of help from Ms. Vita Como. She is the director of the Engineering Career Center, and she's been working in development with engineering for a long time. She has a lot of experience working with engineering students and with engineers who in the workforce. She started the Engineering Career Center as a means to give engineering employers the kinds of applicants that they really want. She wanted to help our students become those applicants. So that's why she began the Engineering Career Center. And if you're wondering where the Engineering Career Center is, you can find it in Engineering Building 1. And it's on the 3rd floor, right when you come off the back elevators. It's right in front of those back elevators. In the Engineering Career Center, they can help you get your resume perfected. They can help you then upload your resume to the Engineering Career Center system so it can be seen by prospective employers. And they can help you with a lot of other stuff too. They have lots of workshops, which we'll get to later in this video. So what is the nature of a resume? How would you define a resume?
I can tell you what it's not. It's not a job application. It's not an interview. It is just an opportunity for people to get a quick and dirty picture of you at any given point.
So if the resume represents you and who you are at a moment in time, then the resume is never static. It changes because you change. So as you progress through your curriculum, the resume changes with you. And we'll show some examples of that as well. So as you change in jobs, the resume changes with you. And even the format of the resume will change according to what you want to use it for. If you want to transition to a different kind of job, if you want to go from being a student to an employee, the resume is never static, constantly evolving.
It's an evolving document. So it changes every semester because they'll take new classes, they'll have new GPAs, they'll learn new technology, they'll maybe have gotten some intern or some work experience. It's not something they do only once and then expect it to be the thing they live with forever.
But what does a resume do? Well, remember, a resume does not get you a job. That's not the way it works. A resume will hopefully get you an interview. If you get a call from a recruiter asking you to come in for an interview, then your resume has done its job. And that's about it. The resume is there to get your foot in the door so that you can get to talk to them about your qualifications. That's all it's there for. They will have to interview you to see if you're the right fit for them. The resume doesn't get you the job.
It's an introduction. It's an introduction of you and your skill set to a potential employer.
But a recruiter's only going to look at a resume for about 10 to 30 seconds before they make a decision. Interview or not interview. 10 to 30 seconds, and that is not a long time. So your resume had better be only 1 page, because they're not going to look through more of it. And if it's longer than 1 page, they're probably going to skip the rest of it and just look at that first page. So the resume, because it's a 1-page snapshot of who you are at this very moment, it must be very concise, very clear, use the terminology from the job posting, and make sure that what is written on that resume is exactly what is necessary for that job.
And they won't look past the first page. They've already told us that. We often encourage students, and we work with students, to reduce it to 1 page because we know, we've been told that's what people are going to look at. And when they insist that it needs to be longer than that, I mean, it's their document, so they insist on. Basically, I tell them they need to make sure that everything they want the recruiter to know about them is on the first page. So when we lay out a resume for students, we share with them what we've been told in terms of how people look for information, where they look for it, and how they expect to see it, so that if they have to look, if they have to search for information, if they have to read paragraphs, they won't. They'll just take it and they'll put it aside, and they've got a couple of hundred others behind it, and they won't ever get back to it. It needs to be clean. I always tell students, think of that one page as like really expensive real estate.
What does a resume look like?
They're looking, the first thing they look for is what kind of a job someone's looking for. So whether it's an internship, a permanent hire, and what their discipline is. So that's right on the first line. They've got an entire shopping list of positions they're looking to fill. And so they're going to correlate those to the jobs. Typically what happens, they'll collect them all, they'll then sort them out, then that pile goes to a hiring manager, who then is the next person that reviews.
So we have the objective at the top, and the objective states the type of job that the person is looking for. So it says whether they're looking for a job in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, that kind of field that they're looking for. It also states whether they're looking for an internship, full-time, part-time, whatever that is. So it's the field and the type of job, because they use it to sort. Sometimes the objective even states the specific job or company that the person is applying for. It can be that specific. And then you usually have the education section. But what goes into the education section? Well, you will normally have the degree that's granted, the institution where it's granted, the date of graduation. They're
looking for when someone is getting ready to graduate, because the key is to fill the pipeline. There's nothing magic about the date except that it helps them plan. The goal of, say, hiring an intern or a co-op is to be able to hire them when they graduate. So they put them in line and they kind of queue them up, and they try to keep the whole pipeline full with the goal of having everybody just move through to permanent hire at the end. They look for the discipline. There are some companies, for instance, who only hire one or two disciplines. You know, Halliburton, a big company, hires everybody. But, you know, a civil consulting company might just hire, they'll probably hire a civil, and then they might hire a mechanical if they need somebody to do environmental drawings and, you know, planning for HVAC and stuff like that. But so that's the second thing they look for.
So how do we organize all of this information?
So they have to have contact information. I mean,
so in that contact information at the top, you put your full name, your phone number, your email address, your snail mail address. And make sure that for your email address you use your UH email address. That's the one you have to be able to use our system. And make sure with your email address, if you have it bounced to something else, right, you have to use your UH email address to use the system. But if you don't use our system, make sure you don't have some kind of cutesy address, okay? Don't make it CamaroLovinJohnny@gmail.com or CutesyPants204, okay? Make sure it is a professional email address. Same thing with your phone messages and things like that. Make sure everything is professional. You're applying for a job. You want to be the person that they want. But let's go back to the objective, because this is a section that a lot of people have trouble with. The objective sometimes will say things like, to obtain an exciting career where my skills can be used and I can learn great new things. Well, that's at once too vague and too grand.
Basically, people use it to sort. If students over-talk it, they run the risk of eliminating themselves. So I always use this excuse because it was pointed out to me. A student was being considered for a big Fortune 500 oil and gas company, and it said the objective, so I can contribute to the profitability of this company. This was going to be for a summer internship. The hiring manager was one of our alums, and he said, I want you to see what we look at when we see this. He said, because I'm looking at this and I say, okay, I'm going to bring in this kid. He thinks he's going to be able to get the kind of a job over the summer that's going to contribute to the profitability of blank oil company. How likely is that to be? And what we run the risk of, if he's true about what he's saying, that I have a malcontent on my hands. I have somebody who's going to badmouth the fact that he's not being given the kind of job that he can do this, or he's going to grouse about the kind of work he's going to or she's going to be getting, He said, do I think that he really thinks that? I don't know, but I think he thinks it sounds cool and it's one of the things he should say, but I can't risk it. I want job experience so I can apply what I've learned in the classroom. I want job experience so I can see what real, if students feel the need to put something after seeking an intern or co-op position in chemical engineering, if they feel compelled to put something after that, it should be something like, so that I can broaden my understanding of the engineering field, or so I can apply, I can see the practical application of things that I've learned in the classroom. I don't think students mean it to be grandiose, but that's how it's interpreted. So I think they need to not overthink it.
So here's an example of a resume with a clear objective. Notice that it states the field that the person is in, as well as the type of job they are applying for. It's very straightforward. Engineers are clear and concise. That's how that objective is. But let's look through the rest of the document. What else are recruiters looking for?
They look to see what courses students have taken, so they get a snapshot of what they've been exposed to. They think of it in terms of, okay, what kind of jobs can I slot them into that will have a de minimis amount of downtime.
And then what? Well, there is a set format for what people are looking for.
So it would be your contact information, your objective, why are you looking, what kind of a position are you looking for? The next thing would be their education, and it would be the university, the college, the degree they're getting, when they expect to graduate, their GPA, their relevant courses, and then work.
Yes, work is very important. In fact, if you don't have work experience by the time you graduate, you may not be able to get a job. You must have that work experience.
So when they're looking for permanent hire, one of the first things they're looking for is if they've had an internship or a co-op. I have many companies who won't even interview for permanent hire someone who has not had experience. I mean, I've had people with 4.0 grade point averages and no work experience that I can't get an interview for. And that's heartbreaking for people to come all the way to the end and then not be a viable candidate because they haven't had any experience.
And then comes the rest of the stuff.
Next thing would be your technical skills. I tell students to think about that like a toolbox. So these are the tools I come equipped with. It doesn't matter where you learn them. So it doesn't matter that you haven't taken a course in a particular thing. But for instance, if you're a photographer and you know how to use Photoshop, that should be in there. If you like to build websites and you know how to write HTML, that should be in there. If you are a shade tree mechanic, and because one of the things we put in there is equipment, especially mechanical engineers, they like people who like to work with stuff. And so if you like to rebuild engines or you like to build computers from component parts, and all of that should be in that technical section. The other thing that would go in there would be if you speak any foreign languages. If you have anything else that sort of requires a skill set. So if you like to play organized sports, if you know how to play a musical instrument, if you coach, say you're a Little League coach or a big brother and big sister coach, all of those skill sets are in one place so that people can, and we break them down by, platforms, software, equipment, language, other, typically. And so people can scan down there and get a real clean sense of what you know how to use. And students, one of the struggles that students have is they often think it's important that people understand the context in which they use things. So I use this software to do this, and people don't really care about that because they know they're not going to recreate the exact situation that you've had to use it in. And they know that students are smart. They are not concerned that they're not going to be able to make the transition to another application or another environment. I have recruiters that people probably wouldn't think recruit engineers. So law firms, financial institutions, investment advisor type folks, reservoir engineers who hire anybody, not necessarily just petroleum engineers. And this is what they tell me. They know things about these students. Number one, they know they're smart. They know they're real comfortable with technology. They know they're very teachable. But probably the single biggest thing is they know they're being taught how to think like engineers. And that engineers think differently than other people That is the skill set that people find some of the most valuable. It's not tied to detail. It's more tied to process. How they learn, they're being taught how to problem solve, how they can isolate for certain incidences.
So the technical skills section can highlight all sorts of technical skills, especially if one is going into a non-traditional field for engineers. For instance, if you go into patent law, financial analysis, other kinds of analysis, which engineers can do, then you would want to highlight the technical skills that are involved in those industries. Now, take a look at this resume. Notice that just the format of it, it's pretty bland. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And one of the things we've been seeing lately is our animated things, little running things across the bottom. I got one this summer that had little fireworks. And of course, to a company that says virus, 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 I'm not opening this, no thank you. I think students think it's going to make their resume look unique and make it stand out, but they run the risk of having nobody open it or look at it. Somebody was trying to embed live links to their an interview YouTube thing of them. Well, you can't, it's against the law to even put a photograph on a resume. So companies can't accept that kind of stuff. I think students don't know that. They don't know the limitations that the companies have in terms of what their HR people tell them they can do and take. Then there are purely mechanical mistakes that people make, like putting gray borders on their resume, like over their contact information.
Sure, an applicant wants to stand out, but how do they want to stand out? That's the question. Well, I guess we could always have a pink resume, right? Miss L. Woods.
Ms. Woods, you did well today.
Really?
You're applying for my internship, aren't you?
I don't know.
You should. You have a resume?
Yes. Here it is.
It's pink.
Oh, and it's scented. I think it gives it a little something extra, don't you think? Okay, well, see you next class.
You think she just woke up one morning and said, I think I'll go to law school today?
Well, that lapse in judgment aside, I think she's got a lot of potential. Here's the Wyndham file. Smell this. What's that?
It's her resume.
It smells good.
So what makes an applicant stand out is that the resume, and thus the applicant, they speak directly to the job posting. Here's what you should try to do. If a job posting lists specific words, keywords, then you should use those same keywords on your resume. That means that you have the experience that the employer is looking for. If they use the key software terms in the application, in the job posting, then you put those exact same terms in your resume. That will make you stand out, because when they scan it, they say, oh yeah, they have exactly what we're looking for. And you'll go in the yes pile. So don't put random stuff on your resume. That won't make you stand out. And definitely don't lie about stuff, like Joey.
Okay, can you really tap dance?
No.
Off the resume. Archery?
No.
Horseback riding?
Would fall off a lot.
You can drink a gallon of milk in 10 seconds.
That I can do.
Come on, you can drink a gallon of milk in 10 seconds?
All right, watch me. Okay, you time me. Ready?
Ready, go.
So let's go through a few of these resumes part by part. First, let's look at Daniel Stafford's resume. Well, Stafford is engineering, but he doesn't seem to have any actual work experience. So what he does is he highlights his research and design projects that he's done in school instead, because those are the experiences that he has. Notice that he puts all of his technical skills and even his volunteer work and his community service work. And notice that it gets less technical and thus perhaps less important as it goes down. The more important stuff that speaks directly to the job is at the top, and then as it goes down, it gets less important, less technical. So it goes from completely relevant job-related experience, job-related stuff, to the more non-job related stuff. Sidney Spiller in his resume does something very similar, but he goes from his coursework, his undergraduate coursework, to his non-engineering work experience, and then his memberships in engineering organizations. Julia McNeil's is a little different. She has what we call a functional resume. The functional resume lists the qualifications of the applicant without going through the specific jobs that the person has. Notice that the skills are there. Those are called transferable skills. The jobs are only listed at the very bottom of the resume. So this kind of resume is used for people who have generally more work experience. So they may have 10 years or more work experience, and they're trying to transition into a new field. So this person is going from banking and management into mechanical engineering, getting the first mechanical engineering degree. So it makes sense that they would want to highlight their transferable or marketable skills, the skills that mechanical engineering would find useful, without highlighting the actual jobs that they did, because those jobs won't translate directly into mechanical engineering. So we generally only recommend functional resumes like this if the person does have 10 years or more experience, or if they're transitioning into a new field, not for someone transitioning from undergraduate to bachelor's level work. Now Caleb Ford, in his resume, you can see that he has had several internships, which is great. Those will definitely help him. Notice that he's actually looking for yet another internship. Notice that his education is highlighted first, and then notice that he goes exactly through each job or each internship and states specifically what he did in those internships, using action terms, which we'll talk about. Now, if he didn't have those internships, he would probably focus on his education projects, the design projects, but because he has those internships, they come first. If he didn't have them, then the education projects would come first, like we saw on the other one. Now, Anthony Kent, you can see in his resume, he doesn't have any engineering work experience. He's trying to get his first engineering internship, which it states in the objective. Notice two things about the education. It comes first, and then it also still highlights his high school. And even at the bottom under honors, there's something about high school. In general, you would only include material from your high school if you have been in college less than 2 years. If you've been in college more than 2 years, get rid of all mentions of your high school. That no longer matters because you should have enough experiences, honors and awards, memberships, things like that from your college experience, from your university experience. Now, even though Anthony Kent doesn't have any engineering experience, he still has some transferable skills. Notice that his lifeguard work and his volunteer experience is there, and he learned things there that are important. And those things will help him get an internship, even though they're not engineering related. Now, once he has a lot of engineering related experience, he'll probably get rid of those. Notice that Anthony Kent's work experience is listed at the very end. He has enough school experiences that he doesn't have to list those jobs. He doesn't have to highlight those jobs. It's still important that he worked, but those are listed at the very end, and he doesn't describe what he did for each job because it's not engineering experience, and he has enough of those experience that he doesn't need to anymore. Now, because Miguel Rodriguez is looking for a programming position, he lists his technical skills first because he wants to let his prospective employer know immediately at the very top the things he is capable of doing, the computer programs that he knows well. And then he lists the projects that he has done, along with some other activities. So if you're involved in any kind of extracurricular activities, make sure you list those. So once Anthony Kennedy gets further along in his degree, like Miguel Rodriguez, he would get rid of that lifeguard experience and things like that to put in more design activities or other education experiences. So don't think your resume is static, like I said. Remember, your document represents you at a point in time, therefore it changes along with you and your experiences. Now let's talk about language in resumes. Remember that people only scan resumes for about 10 to 30 seconds. So they want something that is very quick, easy to read. So they don't want complete sentences. Complete sentences take too long. They want notes. They want bullets. So you need to follow the rules for clear, concise bullets. Remember, the point of bullets is they can be read very quickly. So we need to use something called parallelism. Parallelism is the idea that all lists should have the same structure. The same structure makes them easier to read because we don't have to read every single word. We can scan it more quickly. So if you start with a noun in the first bullet, you start with the noun in the second bullet. You start with the noun in the next bullet. If it's noun and then verb, use noun and then verb. Noun and then verb. You're consistent with the structure of each bullet. That's called parallelism. Each line is parallel. It's not quite two lines that never intersect, but it gets at the same idea that the structure is the same. But most bullets on your resume should actually begin with what we call action words, verbs. And they're either done as the past participle, ed, or as the present tense part of the verb. Because there are things you either did in the past or there are things you are currently doing. So these action words are usually designed, developed, created, analyzed, things like that. Let's look at a few of these. Look at Daniel Stafford's language in his resume. He's talking about a project that he is currently working on where he's evaluating chemical processes, analyzing heat transfer, etc. Notice that it's that present tense because he's currently working on that project. Spiller, however, says that he, quote, developed strong interpersonal skills and that he tutored elementary school students. So that's past tense, but still he has those action words at the beginning. Action words at the beginning help you develop parallelism, but they also show that you did something. You are active. So remember, make it clear, easy to read by using bullets that are parallel with similar structures.
I mean, I have people who hire students after their freshman year. Well, they come in, the first thing they need to do is put in a profile, and probably the biggest barrier is to not having their profile approved is that they need to use their UH email account. It doesn't recognize Gmail, Hotmail, and all of the others, so it gets bounced. So they have to go in and they have to put in a profile. Once their profile is approved, basically that means I run it against PeopleSoft to make sure they're really students here, because our system is only for our students. eConnection is only for engineering students that they get their first job, so then their first permanent hires, they get pulled out of the system, or they're out a year. So if you're out a year, like for some of our international students, and you have not yet found a permanent job, you can still stay active in the system. So they come in, they put in a profile, and then once their profile is approved, the thing they have to do is upload a resume and a cover letter and an unofficial transcript. So there's lots of space in their account for them to upload things. There are job postings, so they can, if they're interested in jobs. I mean, I have 200 jobs in there now that have been active all summer, that if students wanted, they could have gone in and found a job even when they were gone from here for the summer. So there are postings, and you can go in and you can look at the job, and if you think you qualify, you can click on it, and the system will notify the employer that you're interested in this position. All of our events get posted on there, so we have some events that are space limited because the room we have can't accommodate, or we're going to have food and we need to know how many people are coming, and they're filled on a first come first served basis. So the students who know to check eConnection are usually the ones who get in. If you show up because your best friend told you the day of the event, I'll let you in if I have room, but I might not have enough room for you. It'll post all the companies that are on campus doing information sessions, or, Fluor is coming to talk to the AICI group on Thursday, so if you are interested in Fluor, you might want to go to that meeting. Just all of the activities that are around jobs and about preparing for jobs, getting to know about companies. We do some specific kinds of workshops. So we do workshops for job search techniques for international students, because there's a little bit of difference in terms of how do you identify companies who do business in your country of origin where you won't need a visa to work, that kind of thing.
So let's say you have been working with the Career Center and you get a job offer, or you expect to get a job offer.
Oftentimes we explain to students what it looks like on the other side, because sometimes they don't always understand the behavior. So why are they making me an offer? Are they putting a deadline on it? I need time till after the career fair. It's like, if you don't want it, they've got other people waiting in line. They want to make sure that the other people waiting in line, the time doesn't lapse to where they think they're not going to get an offer. So we'll see that a lot at the end of the summer. Like people who are graduating in December and in May who've interned, typically you have to make a decision by the middle of September, because that's when the career fair season starts. We want you to come on board. We want you to come work for us. We're willing to give you a letter of intent and whatever. And if you say no, we're moving on. We do, especially for once we get past the career fair and the interview, the heavy interview session, we do things like, what's my life going to look like when I'm an engineer? What does my career path look like? What can I expect? 1, 3, 5 years out. And typically what we do is we'll bring in people who are in different stages of their career. So someone who's a new grad, who's in a new job, someone who's out 5 years, someone who's out 10 years, and someone who's the president of the company. And just talk about how did I get, what kind of decisions did I have to make at these crossroad points. Those have been pretty well attended. So students, especially seniors, kind of are the people who are contemplating that kind of question.
Networking is tricky. People like me, we would rather go to a cocktail party and do nothing but sit in the corner reading a magazine. That's how we are. But we have to learn to be much more assertive when it comes to getting a job. If you think that jobs come by applying through monster.com or just applying to things online, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That's not the way most people get jobs. The way to get a job is to talk to people and make them see how great you are. And that can only be done through networking. In order to talk to people, you must have someone to talk to, so you have to continually meet people. According to NPR's All Things Considered, about 70 to 80% of jobs are not even posted. So no one can know about them at all, unless you know someone in the company. The statistic they use on NPR's All Things Considered is that a company generally gets applications for 6 times the number of current employees. So let's say it's a pretty big company, 30,000 employees. That means they get 180,000 applications. That's a lot. So applying online is not the way to get the job, because there are 179,000 other people who are doing the same thing. Now, it is necessary to do it. If a person at a career fair or somewhere tells you, you need to go and apply online, you must do it. Do not say, oh, they're just blowing me off. No, go do it. It could be that they're blowing you off, but it's also because many companies require online applications in order to show that they have a blind process. They're not just playing favorites and hiring people of a certain race. No, it's online, they cannot see you, they're hiring you because of your qualifications. But applying online is not the only way to do it. You've got to get out there and be a salesman. You've got to try to meet people in your field. It's hard, but we have to learn to try to do it. Talk to other students too, not just prospective employers. Find out what other students have done that made them candidates that people wanted. If they got an internship, find out how they did it. Try to emulate those things that other people have realized worked. And if people did something that didn't work, learn that too.
We've encouraged students very strongly to join the student chapters of their professional societies and to go to the chapter meetings, not just the student meetings. to go to the professional society meetings. I mean, companies love having, those are the people who are going to hire you. They love having students, and they'll probably buy you dinner. Now, the ASME kids, they could go have dinner at the Petroleum Club once a month. We're not talking about, and the people at that meeting are the people who are going to hire you. No, they're not going to interview you at the meeting. I had a student come back and say, you know what, that was really a waste of my time. And I said, why? And he said, because nobody told me they had jobs. And I can tell you that for students who want to do that, I've been encouraging students to get business cards. They shouldn't be hauling out resumes in environments like that. But if you go to that kind of a networking thing and you give somebody your card, the courtesy is they're going to give you one of theirs back. And then a follow-up that says, John, really enjoyed meeting you at the ASME meeting. Thank you for sharing about your company. Thank you for sharing about what your work life is like. Here's where I am, and if you know of any opportunities, a great follow-up kind of thing. And students go, oh. Oh, I thought I was going to go there and then we were going to talk about jobs. It's like, no, that's not what happens. When I have students for whom that's worked, if they come and talk about it, it's way more effective than, because I look like somebody's mother or grandmother. It's way more effective than if I do it. So that's why I bring people like John and Chris and a couple of other people who've actually worked the system well to come back. And so, students are being given those great opportunities, and they bring, we were talking about the international model, their ease with diversity, their ease with hearing languages spoken, hearing English spoken with a foreign accent. They would think nothing of it. But I have a group of students who are at a big multinational corporation, and he called me one day and he said, I need to tell you this story. He said, we designed, they're a big design company. He said, we design internationally. We design 24 hours a day. So we have design teams in China, in Malaysia, in India, Korea, and here in Houston. He said, and once a week we have a design meeting. And this was the first design meeting of this team. He said, and so I thought it would be nice for students to see how that works. So I asked the student interns to come in, be part of the meeting, and understand how we operate globally. But I want to tell you what ended up happening. When the meeting was over, I stood up and I said, I know that this meeting was conducted in English, but I want to tell you something, I have no clue what was said. He said, because I couldn't understand most of the people who were talking. And so he said, and some of my very senior people were nodding. He said, but here's the thing, the students took all the notes. He said, and what we got was that they were used to hearing English spoken with an Indian accent, English spoken with a Chinese accent. We're now using the students' notes as the meeting minutes. He said, and they were clueless how valuable that was. He said, when you think of the hour and how many man-hour dollars were in that room and part of that conference, for that not to have worked, what that meant, just in pure, let's not even talk about lack of productivity, but let's talk about just in dollars, what that meant. He said, and those kids have no clue. So they bring that value added. There's lots of softer things that don't get reflected in the GPA.
Yeah, softer things, like communication skills. That's why you're required to take a technical communications class. It's because communication skills are necessary for engineers, and thus they can help you get the jobs you want. That's the goal. So, I hope you've enjoyed our video on resumes. I hope you learned something as well. So, until next time, happy job hunting.